as the most watched TV platform. So that is, I never would have guessed that. Known for cat videos, now TV. All right, you guys in the back, I am going to make you come up here. Or my staff is, the shiny jackets. All right, next, we have a fantastic panel, which is going to talk about some of the innovations that were touched on earlier. One of the obstacles, of course, is getting films in theaters. So how do we get direct to theaters? What are those obstacles to overcome? And how can filmmakers get those releases? So I would love to introduce to the stage, you can come up after I introduce you. We have John Fithian, co-founding partner of the Fithian Group, Jackie Brenneman, co-founding partner of the Fithian Group, Patrick Corcoran, co-founding partner of the Fithian Group, and please welcome Richard Rushfield, journalist from the Ankler, as our moderator. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you. Thank you, Heather, for such a beautiful space and so many fascinating conversations happening here today. I'm really excited to introduce this panel. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I knew them all in their previous life when they oversaw the National Organization of Theater Owners. A few months ago they came and they told me about this thing they're working on, this new project that just seemed to be such a fantastic step forward to solve what is the major problem troubling film these days. And I'm going to let them tell you more about it, but first I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We're going to start with John on the end here. John Fithian.
Hi, I'm John Fithian. I served for many years as the CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners. We had members, big theater chains, little tiny independents, and everything in between in all 50 states around the country and in 100 countries around the world. And in the process of representing theater owners in Hollywood, the intersection between theater owners and the creative community, we learned a lot about what challenges face the connection between filmmakers and theaters, and that's what we're trying to solve.
I'm Patrick Corcoran. I was at NATO, the trade association with the Air Force, for about 25 years, and at the end of it was as Vice President and Chief Communications Officer. And again, to echo what John was saying, we learned in our positions there that theater owners and independent filmmakers were kind of aligned in what they're trying to do. Filmmakers are trying to get more movies into theaters. Theater owners are trying to get more movies into their theaters, and getting movies that are out in theaters but not in their theaters. So once we all left NATO and formed this little partnership, what we were looking to do is find a way to bring those people together and to create the system that we had envisioned at NATO that we couldn't do.
I'm Jackie Brenneman. So I spent about a decade at NATO, which was not a lot of time compared to my partners here. Started off kind of doing industry relations, where I was between studios, the technology companies, and our members, the movie theater owners, but ended up becoming general counsel and then executive vice president, and then founded something called the Cinema Foundation. And in all of those roles, the key was leveraging data, leveraging insights about the industry to advocate for something that was really important. There were a lot of barriers to success in this business, but all of those barriers are structures that can be taken down. At the heart of it is that people want to connect with other human beings, and they love connecting with other human beings while watching a story, watching something emotional, watching something that makes them feel. And so if that is true, and I believe that, and my partners here believe that, then our job now that we are forming our own company is to break down some of those barriers and grow this business.
Woo!
So in the startup world, I run a startup also, and you have a startup. When you're pitching your product, before you talk about what you're doing, you have to outline what's the problem. What is the problem you're trying to solve? So tell us, what is the problem in the cinema world right now?
So there are lots of problems in the cinema world right now. Yes, there was COVID, which really hurt. Yes, there were the strikes, which really hurt. And we can talk about what happened in those issues ad nauseum, but we won't. The main problem that we identified is that the type, the diversity, and the awareness of films coming into cinemas has been declining for 15, 20 years. What do I mean by that? There are 5 major suppliers of film to cinemas. They control 80+% of the market, and they're shrinking their product supply. They're shooting for blockbusters and 4-quadrant films almost all the time. In some companies, they're now exclusively doing that. There's still a couple major studios that make smaller films, but not that many. There are several smaller studios / distributors that do make somewhat smaller films, but the data suggests that the number of mid-range and small films making it into cinemas and making it into cinemas with an effective marketing campaign has declined substantially. So just take the mid-sized films to begin with, might be able to make $50 million. Between 2004, the height of the DVD market, and 2019, right before the pandemic, we lost 40% of the supply of those movies into cinemas. That's $1 billion in admissions in the US alone, not to mention globally. At the same time, we have lots of independent films trying for, and sometimes getting, little theatrical releases, and that's still the case. In 2023, there were 110 independent distributors that put movies into cinemas, okay? But they're using old-fashioned technologies, they're using people, they're not effectively distributing and marketing their product because the tools don't exist to do that. So independent film might get a little bit of a theatrical release, but nobody knows it's there. Nobody knows the independent film that's about a subject matter that they care about is there, and therefore, not a whole lot of attendance comes, the film gets dropped in a week, maybe plays in 5 cities, and it's done. So the main problem with the cinema industry is not that people don't want to go to the cinema. On a per film basis, they're still going to the cinemas like they were pre-pandemic. There are much fewer films. People still want to come out, they still want to experience movies in a shared culture with their fellow human beings, but the movies aren't there for them to see, or they don't know that the movies are there for them to see. So that's the challenge that we're trying to face.
Yeah, and look, the internet has not reached the cinema industry, right? If you want to get your movie into a theater, you have to know someone who knows someone who knows someone. You have to make a phone call. You will log that data on a spreadsheet, and then you'll call someone else who will use another spreadsheet to get that in. And then when you want to figure out how much money that movie made, you'll call an exhibitor, and then you'll try and get a check sent to you. I mean, there are lots and lots of inefficiencies. And ultimately, when you're not using the internet, you're also not collecting good data. And so what ends up happening is that our industry is always looking backwards. We look backwards at how did a movie like this perform in a theater like yours? Oh, well, we never had a movie like that play in our theater because it used to cost $2,000 to put a movie like that in a theater with a film reel or a virtual print fee. So my small market never got to even play those movies. So how can I now prove that I can play that movie, even though now it only costs $50? Well, if all we're doing is looking backwards and all we're doing is trying to stay safe and do the thing that's the most reliable and predictable, then we're never going to serve those audiences. And we've had so much movement since COVID. People are leaving cities, they're moving all over the country, and they're not being served. They are asking for films, they are connecting with filmmakers online, but the internet has not reached the cinemas.
So yeah, that's a big problem, or that's a lot of big problems. It's so much of a big problem that the people I know at studios have largely given up on trying to solve it and just sort of written it off as like, well, nothing you could do. The mid-range is gone, and small movies are probably gone too. So how are you guys going to solve it?
Well, it's basically with a different business model. Essentially, there isn't, we have to sort of go outside of what traditional distribution is and does. One of the biggest issues is that we don't have a direct connection between filmmakers or film rights holders and theater owners. So what we want to create, and we're in the process of creating, is using some existing tools and new tools to put people with films directly in a marketplace with people with theaters, right? So that with the information that the filmmaker puts into the system, a lot of data about the genre, the budget, the cast, the audience they're trying to reach, right? The demographic markers for that movie. And you put it in the same way that you have like Airbnb or a dating app. Not exactly like that, but in other words, I'm very tall, I'm a little handsome, I'm balding. Anybody interested? Right? So you're going to have theaters on the other side who are saying, I am looking for a short, kind of handsome, balding guy. Maybe give me different terms. I want a 45% split on this particular thing, right? So the theater owners have all put in what they are looking for, right? The kind of movies that they think will appeal to their audience, because they have information about it, but they have no way to get it to people looking to get into their theaters. So if you have a movie with its attributes, reaching out for theaters with their attributes, you can come up with a distribution plan within this system that will tell you where you should be booking this movie. Theater owners on the other side are going to be notified, this movie wants to book your theater on this date, at these terms, and you can do pricing that you want to do yourself. All of the attributes of that movie are in there, and you can say yes or no, or right back going, yes, but maybe I don't want to do that many showtimes, I don't want to do that split, I'm not flexible on pricing, or I am. All of that data can work together within the system. And then once you have that booked, all of the marketing money that you have, you can spend it in the places where you know that movie is booked, where the audiences are, and where you have the system that's told you those audiences are there. And part of the data that we're putting into this system is going to be loyalty data that the theaters have. They'll tell you who's going to their theaters. There will be the backward-looking box office data, but there'll also be the demographics around those theaters, right? That will be pulled into that. That'll tell you the audiences you're not getting. There are people out there around your theater and you're not programming for it, or you're not reaching those theaters with your movie. So that's the basic technological broad brush idea of what we're trying to do.
Just to add a little bit on Patrick's good description, this is a data play, this is an AI play, this is a software play. And I know some of those terms are bad for creative filmmakers, but believe me, these things are going to help you. Imagine, if you will, the best database in the world, which we hope to pull together in this system, that can tell you on a zip code geolocated basis around every theater location in the country. Actually, we're launching in the US and Australia, and then hopefully going global beyond that. But on a zip code basis in the US, you can tell from the data in our system over time who lives close enough to that theater to go to that theater, who has been going to that theater, because we know that through loyalty data, who hasn't been going to that theater and why, and what are they like. So we're looking at a beta phase with a Bollywood title, targeted by language with data based on who lives in the expat communities on each theater's specific basis, who speaks that language or came from that territory. A French language animation film we're looking at that we know we can target based on who lives next to what theaters that might be interested in that genre. Documentaries, which have almost died from theaters, and they used to be really, really big, right? Think of the year when we had Three Perfect Strangers, RGB, and a bunch of other documentaries that made millions of dollars.
I believe in the year before
That's gone.
the pandemic, there were
Yeah.
there were 8 movies that made over documentaries that made over $10 million.
Yep. And the
just 5 years
streamers
ago.
help documentaries in a way and kill documentaries in another way. They help them by having a place where they could be seen, right? But then they all just got buried. And what a theatrical release does is establish the knowledge and the word of mouth about a movie that then can later pop on the streaming service. So we want to build into the database on a cause basis, geolocated data system, who in what communities cares about what issues. Where are there community groups that are organizing around this various cause? Which theaters are they closest to? You build all that into the database, and then you got a documentary that appeals to people who care about that issue, and the system can tell you the following 75 theaters in this country are the best places where the most people are that care about that issue. It's gonna take us a while to build this, we'll get to that in a minute, but it is startling to us that the movie industry does not use data and AI and algorithms and software to connect filmmakers with theater owners when literally every other industry is doing this. We are operating in the dark ages right now.
Just Patrick mentioned terms a little bit, and I think it cannot be overstated how important it is to understand how little experimentation there is in the theatrical sector. And part of that is by design, right? You have these major suppliers who, when they book a film, do not book showtimes, they book an entire screen out. And so even if it's an animation title that can't possibly play at 10 p.m., by booking the whole screen, they're preventing their competitors from playing a showtime at 10 p.m. This is a bigger problem in the United States than other territories, and other territories are actually doing better. But pricing is also a really big issue. We heard earlier today about, you know, the interest in certain types of films isn't matching behavior. And a large part of that is because that same exact product, documentaries, you know, smaller films, are being offered in 2 different markets at the same time at 2 wildly different price points. We are encouraging consumers to go to the home as fast as possible. We are telling them that only certain movies are movie theater movies. And we have to make a change. And we did something called National Cinema Day at the Cinema Foundation. Movies were $3 the first year, $4 the second year. And not only did we had 1 week, $500,000 to advertise this, brand new kind of initiative. And 8 million people came out the first year, which was still during COVID. 8.5 million people came the second year. And they saw movies that they would not normally see in theaters. We had movies that at $4 that were making $1,000 more than they made the week, 1,000% more than they made the week before. And audiences said that they chose those movies that they would not have seen before in the theater because they would have just waited for streaming, or the movie got bad reviews so they were gonna skip it. But when you incentivize people with price, they will come out. So there is money and growth to be made if we can innovate.
Yeah, what's astounding is here at Sundance for filmmakers who made a independent film, that you're going into the system that was sort of pre-computers. It's that you have to have a guy in Louisville who can call the local theater and know what the best screen you can get is, and if you don't have those 1,000 offices, then you're just roadkill there. But the other part of it is marketing. That the other thing that for studios, marketing is you spend $40 million on TV ads, and just like you would have in 1957. How can you help filmmakers get around that and get awareness of it once they make a distribution plan that's right for them to work around that?
Some of it, and some of it we're learning with our Alpha Phase project, where the filmmakers are deeply involved in every aspect of it, and they're talking directly to theater owners about their marketing ideas, and their marketing spend is being targeted very precisely for where those movies are. Eventually, we hope to, once the system is built out, have sort of a revolving marketing fund that is above that can look down and say, okay, this movie has real potential, it's in these theaters, it's got this kind of marketing, but with a little more marketing money, it can do much better, right? So some of that, the data that's going to be there for the targeting of the movie is going to help with the marketing of the movie. And I think, you know, part of the issue, especially when you think about that $50 to $100 million range, is that the economics don't work out in terms of, okay, you spend $10, $20 million to make your movie, and you're going to spend $20 to $40 million to market the movie, put it into theaters. Well, to break even, you're going to have to make over $100 million now, because there's a 50% split, basically, right? So all of a sudden that's seen as a failure, without the idea that there are also more markets down the line, right? So there's this fear of putting these movies in, but also doesn't pencil out. It's like, well, if we're gonna break even or in the theatrical, then we can't justify this expense to put this movie in. And it's because not fitting into the business model is the issue, not the quality of movies, or not the interest of audiences. Filmmakers are being squeezed out. They're being told by the studios that we have no interest in this kind of movie. Filmmakers don't have an outlet for it. And what we're trying to provide is an outlet and a direct connection to theater owners, so that from the very beginning they can start thinking about where they're targeting their movie, raising money and thinking about the marketing of their movie from the very beginning, not, I've made my movie, my work is done, somebody buy it and save me. That's the model now. And that model is dead. And we are looking for a different way, a different type of thinking about the entire ecosystem.
Can I pick up on something, Rich? Is that okay? So I see Dan. Is Selena here too? Okay. So Dan and Selena, stand up, if you would please. Okay. So Dan and Selena have a movie called You, Me, and Her. That's our first little alpha test release. It's being released on February 14th in about 200 screens across the country. Woo! And is Steve here from Living Room? Okay, so Steve from Living Room is right over there. He runs 2 theaters, one in Portland, Oregon, one in Indianapolis, and he's working with them as filmmakers on how to publicize their movie in his theaters, okay? This is what we want to do, is connect filmmakers directly with exhibitors in order to find out where those audiences are that would like this particular type of film. Okay, now that's our alpha release, and you can hear more about their movie on a panel here at the Impact Lounge on Saturday. Right? So now you can sit down, you get the stage on Saturday. So that's the alpha release on February 14th. If you get a chance, please go see You, Me, and Her in a theater, because what we're trying to do is use this movie to instruct us on how to finish building out the platform. We have some of the software tools and some of the targeting ready, which we're using on their movie, but we're still kind of hand distributing this movie because the rest of the tools aren't there yet. We take the learning from that movie and we work with our technology partner. It's called the Vista Group out of New Zealand. They're the largest providers of software and other technology components for cinema owners around the world. They're helping us build this thing. Then we go into a beta phase between July 1st of 25 this year and June 30th of 26, in which we are trying to very carefully hand select 12 to 15 titles that range from, we're going after a $60 million production budget action film, all the way down to a $500,000 little independent that we absolutely positively love that we're looking at for December 2nd as a holiday release, and everything in between. And we're trying to find one French film, one Bollywood film, one Spanish language film, one doc. Okay, we're looking for one really good doc for this beta phase. One biopic, which I think we heard the description of what we want yesterday, if that turns out the way we think it will. And then use that beta phase with these 12 to 15 films that are wide array of genre, budgets, everything, to figure out how to finalize the data, how to finalize the targeting schemes, so that the system will then work automatically for hundreds of films starting in the year after that, right? We've modeled between 300 and 400 films in year 2, and then platforming out from there. And we hope, what?
You're 5.
You're 5. No, did I say year 2? I'm a little more aggressive.
John's really fun. We love him for that.
They do the actual numbers.
Gotta check my bank balance.
If someone gives us $1 billion, we will give you 300 movies in year 2.
Yeah, but for the filmmakers in the audience, like, understand the system, learn about it. We can't do all your films in the next year, okay? Because it's a beta phase. But watch this system really closely. And as Patrick said, when you're raising money to get your little film made, think about doing it yourself all the way through. Don't think about just making your movie and trying to get it picked up. Think about taking control of your movie and not just making it, but raising a little bit of money to market it and self-distribute it, or use an independent distributor. Independent distributors out there, we want them to use our tool set too, right? They're spending way too much time with spreadsheets and phone calls and sending out invoices and collecting checks and FedEx packages. They should be spending their time doing what their expertise is, designing a distribution and a marketing plan and helping you guys do that stuff strategically while they use our tool set for all the back office stuff. Okay. Sorry, we talked.
We are going to take questions from the audience if you have any. But when you think about it, across our culture, in so many ways, people are taking back the means of owning their film. And what's heartbreaking here at Sundance every year is that you see these films get acquired and they go into this world that just doesn't know how to handle independent films, whether it's on streaming or releases that don't get support. And then you have this phenomenon of these films that are so loved here at Sundance, and then you never hear from them again. And just as a writer on Substack, I own my fate. I own what I'm doing, and able to promote it. You see in the creator economy, this is the trend everywhere. But they've met this wall of the tools aren't available in the real world, and I think it's very exciting that finally filmmakers can have these tools. With that, let's take a question from the audience.
Wow, cool. I just want to understand a little bit more about your marketing. I understand it's obviously going to be very hands-on alpha. probably less hands-on beta, and then I don't know what comes after beta, but anyways, you're when you have a sort of automated, you're not going to be expecting to do any marketing. So, you know, I don't, I don't know what my question is, but like, tell me your vision.
What is the marketing piece, right? Because
What is the
when people
marketing
think about distribution is getting movies into theaters and marketing, right? It's and.
Right.
And what we're trying to say first and foremost is you don't need the and in one place, right? So what we're trying to say is there's a way for you to get movies into theaters in a way that's very affordable, right? We take 11%, that is drastically less than a traditional and distribution model. Okay, and you're not guaranteed marketing spend in those deals either. That could go all the way up to 35%. You are still not guaranteed real marketing. So what you have now is the opportunity to take your fate into your hands in a number of different ways. So number one is knowing who your audiences are, right? From the outset, by sharing this data, you now understand who it is that you're targeting, and there are tools to be able to target those audiences the best ways. Another way is that every single studio, they're not doing everything in-house, right? They partner with people that are experts on making trailers, on doing one-sheets, on PR. We will provide you with a list of those people, and hopefully, because we'll be doing 300 movies in year 2, you know, we'll have such bulk that we'll be arranging really great deals, and they'll be specialists in different kinds of genres, so you know who to go to. We'll also be able to do streamlined marketing with exhibitors. Lots of exhibitors either do free marketing or they charge, but either way you can do that automatically this way as well. There's a pipeline. So what Dan and Selena are doing, which I think is, you know, very, very interesting and I think really inspiring for all of you, is again looking to brands. We heard about that earlier. You know, not all of the brand partnerships are monetary. Some of them are to amplify. They have a deal they're working on with a childcare provider who will give free childcare in the California area, because they want people to understand that childcare and date night and movies go hand in hand. They've got a tequila company that's trying to help out. They've got these awesome influencer boxes that they're sending out. These people have given their brand, they put their branded products in these boxes to ship to influencers to tie to the movie. So there are lots of cool ways, but the answer is learning. The answer is we have to do it a different way, and the only way is to just keep learning and sharing information.
And part of that, and I'm going to point to Dan and Selena again, this is, we're sort of trying to analyze what it is we want to know from our alpha phase, right? And a lot of it is learning about what the obstacles are, what the opportunities are, what's just really painful, and what are the wins, right? Well, win number one is they've got theatrical release, which they didn't have before, and they still own the movie. Win number two is when we announced in one article, the reporter basically, that we're distributing or working with them to distribute this movie, they tripled their marketing budget.
How? Wait,
By people investing in them.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Because they had a theatrical release.
Wow.
Right? So that's one of the takeaways for us that's really important. And that was our thesis to begin with. Theatrical release makes your movie more important. And it's going to make it more money, it's going to make it more valuable in each different platform that it reaches.
In addition to connecting with the independent filmmakers, with the theaters, and then also with the brands, you mentioned the connections with the impact and the social impact. How are you going to be connecting with the nonprofit organizations and any of the impact organizations? Because that's something that is important to me, and especially as used to be working with nonprofit organization like Tourette Association of America. You know, in addition to the large organizations, some of the smaller grassroots organizations.
That's a really, really good question, and I'll start, which is that we are building this business to make money. We're entrepreneurs, okay? You should think in making impact films as entrepreneurs and not just filmmakers. And that means thinking up front about how your movie can get distributed, how your movie can make money. Part of the way you do that if you're making impact films is what that question brilliantly suggests, is figure out the organizations and the causes who might be interested in the theme of your impact film. What we want to do on our end is build all that stuff into our database, right? So that if there are, let's say it's a faith-based impact film, then we know where every church or synagogue or institution, religious institution is located in the geolocated basis next to which theater. If it's a film that affects people with disability challenges like deaf or blind, we want to know where every school for the deaf is in the country, which theaters are located next to, which organizational groups that represent those constituencies, where they're located, where things about that theme have been successful in the past in other forms of entertainment, so that the database can say to you, this film reaches people who care about this issue. There are these nonprofit organizations and their supporters located in these zip codes next to those theaters. Right? That's the goal on helping impact films. And the last part about this is, for impact, I was here for the last panel, and I know a very, very intelligent man talked negatively about the possibility of documentaries and impact films growing as business propositions. I get that. I know what the challenges are that you're facing. If you work with us on data and software and targeting to lower your costs on some of that stuff so you can spend more money on other things, to get impact films into theaters, not only will you make money that way, but people will see them in theaters, which then makes that impact film a known entity that can then get picked up by a streaming service and be seen by even millions more, okay? So if the impact film's gonna have impact, it needs to be seen. It needs to be seen first in a community of shared interest in the auditorium of one of the many great movie theaters in this country. That will help it be seen by even more people down the road online. So we're not building this thing just for impact films, right? But obviously the fact that we're here through these 3 days of this session means that each of us believe in the power of impact films, and we want to help create a system that helps you with your impact films just as much as it helps the $60 million action film that we're negotiating for too, right?
And look, the idea here is competition, right? We don't have enough competition in our industry. There's not enough competition, there's not enough leverage. Movie theaters are operating, like one of the very biggest circuits operates at 11% occupancy. 11%. That is not a sustainable business model, okay? So movie theaters want people in their theaters. So what you need to do is show that what you are offering will bring people into their theaters. They want to grow their audience. They know that the people that go to Blockbusters near them, they've got them. But if they want to grow their business, they need your movies and they need your efforts to grow that business. So be competitive, yeah.
So I'm sorry, that unfortunately we are out of time.
Oh,
Okay,
Steve gets a shot.
one more I'm told.
Sorry.
All right, let's start.
I'm gonna be tough on you guys just for a second and say one of the things that is hard within our industry, especially for filmmakers, to ever see a penny. You know, they get distribution. A lot of people get big distributors to pick up their movie, never get paid. So a big part of that is data transparency. Will you commit to, for example, consistently report to ComScore? Will you, for example, put numbers out in advance for filmmakers to understand what's a successful release look like so that they know whether they won or lost?
Transparency is the key of our system, so yes, we are committing to that. I do think there's a world in which we offer a four-wall options, but people should know that. But the goal here is to own your IP and own that data and understand it.
And data transparency is vital for the system to work. It doesn't learn unless we have transparent data. There'll be data within the system. It won't just be ComScore reporting. It'll be reported in the system. You'll be able to see real time and track what's happening with the movies that are in it. You'll be able to see who's booked these movies ahead of time, right? And we hope to build in other tools that will sort of like give you a heat map that says, look, theaters like yours are booking this. Maybe you want to look at it, right? So openness and transparency is everything to this.
And it's all about getting the payments in, right? If you're an independent filmmaker or an independent distributor today, and you're lucky enough to get a bunch of cinemas booked, collecting from those cinemas can be very, very difficult, because maybe you've got one movie, or maybe you're working with an independent distributor that has three. So those theater owners are gonna pay Disney and Warner Brothers and Sony a lot faster than they pay you, right? Our system is all about volume in the end, right? So we'll have at some point 300 to 500
It's
movies.
6 months.
300 to 500 movies a year in our system, which means to the theater owners using our system, pay back into the system very quickly your film terms, or you get cut off from 300 movies down the road, right? Or Deluxe, who's delivering your DCPs, who might charge an independent filmmaker $85 to $100 per location to deliver your digital cinema packages. Because we're gonna be bringing them 300 or 400 movies a year, they're gonna charge us $45 for that. Or the people that make trailers, or the people that hold digital marketing assets to go into theaters, or any of these third parties that we're gonna API connect out of our system to show filmmakers where to go to get all that stuff done and build you a roadmap on how you can self-distribute your film and put it all in there. The other beauty is because we're bulk buying, you're gonna get discounts and all that stuff. We're really passionate and we've gone beyond our,
So,
Do you have time for
real
one
quick,
more?
real quickly.
Yeah, so, I was wondering about the data transparency, but like between the films, so can you learn from, for example, another release that's going on that might be, you know, we have an impact film for sure, it's like a niche film documentary, wondering if, you know, being part of the system, you also get the value of other releases going on, you know, just before yours or throughout the country, and if there's kind of a network of filmmakers, you're envisioning being able to learn from one another who are all using the system for the same purpose.
So usually with data, you know, there has to be an opt-in, right, for some of this. So, for example, we expect that exhibitors, when they put their information in about data loyalty, their loyalty programs, that won't be shared with any of their competitors, right? And that makes complete sense. There will also be, I am sure, cases like this where it's so much more beneficial to have things be open. So I think that's gonna be, there'll probably be some baseline you'll be able to comp out based on the genre. But depending on what filmmakers want, we can build in tools that allow you guys to share much more freely.
All right, this is so exciting, and thank you, John Fithian, Patrick Corcoran, Jackie Brenneman. Really, this is what our world needs so bad. I mean, you are saving confronting an existential problem to the movie world, and wish you all success, and thanks everybody for being here for it.
We have a flyer to address
we've got a flyer with our contact information and what the system looks like if you want one.